it's Beauty Junkie. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing a full face of the most expensive makeup in my collection. This probably won't vary too much from my other get ready with me or full face makeup videos, but I wanted to pick out the most expensive products of all the categories of makeup in my collection just to get a conversation going about whether or not these products are worth it, even though they have a hefty price tag. Of course, there's a mixture of some things that I think are absolutely standout products and some that I do not think are worth it at all. So I think this video will be helpful for you if you are thinking about picking up any of these things or anything from these brands. If you've been to my channel before, you know that I do have a lot of videos featuring luxury makeup. It is safe to assume that I do enjoy luxury makeup overall. The packaging, the performance, the way it feels in my hands, all of that kind of ties into whether or not I like a product or not. And more often than not, I do like a lot of luxury makeup. I do think it's worth it, but I'm a beauty junkie. Like, I've always really loved makeup. I used to play with drugstore makeup when I was a kid. So now that I can afford higher price makeup, I definitely am going all out and trying the brands that I've always wanted to try, envied, all of that fancy stuff, just to see, you know, is this really better than something else? And it depends, of course. So I just wanted to get into a little bit of discussion with you as I'm applying a full face of the most expensive products in my collection. So let's get started. Apologies for the cloudy, darkened day. It is overcast. So not as much sun, unfortunately. If you guys are curious, there's going to be some products that you probably have seen me talk about before that might be more expensive than the product that I'm using. But I did want to give a little bit of brand variety in this video. So for example, I have the Clé de Peau foundation with it, which was over $100. I have another Sicily foundation that's also over $100. But I just did a full face of Sicily video, so I'm going with this second most expensive one in my collection, the Clé de Peau, to give you guys a little bit of variety. So starting with primer, this one I do think is worth it, but this is more of a skincare moisturizer. Victoria Beckham Cell Rejuvenating Priming Moisturizer. This is my favorite primer, but it is like a illuminating serum moisturizer combo. So if you like some dewiness, if you're more about just juicing up the skin more than smoothing it out, I wouldn't say this is a smoothing primer. It's not gonna necessarily like smooth out and fill out your pores or anything like that. But if you're more about moisture and giving a little bit of glow, this is the perfect primer for you. But this is like high-end skincare prices. This is the largest size. So if you like more of a skincare-based primer than a makeup-based primer, this might be one to try. They do have smaller options that are less expensive than the full size that you can try out if you're really interested, but the skincare comes from Augustinus Bader. If you already use Augustinus Bader, maybe you already have his moisturizer, I would bet that you probably don't need this one too. I've tried the Augustinus Bader one of the creams, the lighter cream. I didn't like it, but I like this primer, so take that for what you will. Next up, I'm going to use the Beautay Brightening CC Serum. This is the white rose version. There's different colors, and it's just an illuminating serum kind of product. Very liquidy. You can mix this in with foundation. You can put it on top, underneath. I'm going to put it on underneath. You can see that glow, that sheen there. This is about... I can't remember the prices. I'm not going to look every price up, but I feel like this is like $80, $90 or something. Me, personally, I don't think it's worth it. I think you can get illuminating products that give you a similar result for less money. I also think this smells way too strongly of rose, like really strong. So I'm not like in love with it, but it is one of Beautay's classic products, so I wanted to try it out. Overall, as a brand, I will say I'm mostly disappointed by Beautay. I don't think their stuff is that great. I don't love their eyeshadow palette that I have. Next up for foundation, I'm trying the Clé de Peau Radiant Fluid Foundation Natural. This came out last year. This is SPF 25 and I have the shade B10 Light Beige. Couple pumps there. This is, as I said, like one of two of my over $100 foundations. Everything else I have is less than that. I think this is a pretty enough foundation, but I don't think it's any different than the $80, $60, $70 foundations that I have. And I don't think it wore that well throughout the day. And it just didn't like perform that much better than the others. So I personally don't think it's worth it. But it's also not a bad foundation either. It's just when you get to a certain price point that you're comfortable with and then you go beyond that, you want things to be that much better, and when they're not, you're like, that really wasn't worth my money. And that's the point of discussion today. Like, you know, you guys know your limit, your comfort level in buying makeup. I think most people would recommend spending more and investing more in complexion. Most of us have not perfect faces. Most of us, as we get older, we get some discoloration, we get redness. We just look a little bit tired more easily. So complexion is something a lot of us prioritize, especially under the eyes. I need my makeup to really perform. And when it doesn't, you get that fear that people are gonna see you're tired, that you don't look so great. And you don't really want people to notice that, you know what I mean? Like you want to see your face and your smile and not so much your tired level, your level of tiredness, you know what I mean? So lots of people spend a little bit more on complexion. We all have different skin types, different activity levels. Some of us just get hot really easily during the day, so we really need our makeup to not melt off our face. Some of us can go with a really light layer, and that's what we're comfortable with. We don't want anything heavy on our skin. I like a variety of finishes, but if I want like a sturdy foundation that's gonna last the workday through the ups and downs of the motions of the day, the going outside, going indoors, I usually like to have at least a medium coverage that wears well on my skin, looks pretty, doesn't make me look older than I am. That's also a key with some makeup. Sometimes it covers too much. It creates fine lines and creases that weren't there before. So there's, you know, performance issues that I also consider when I'm buying makeup, and the price doesn't really matter. I always want it to work well. I think this is a really decent looking foundation around my nose. It's not completely perfect, but it's good. I did pick up concealers from Clé de Peau as well. This is the stick concealer SPF 25. They have a new version of it, SPF 27. I have the shade Ivory, and then this is the Radiant Corrector for Eyes. This is a brightening concealer correction pen, also from Clé de Peau, also in the shade Ivory. I think these products are a little bit more worth it and a little bit more of a standout product to me than this foundation. Now, I don't normally use concealers in this format, so maybe that's why it stands out to me, but I think these give a good amount of coverage, but there's some caveats. This one, the stick one, kind of gives me more crinkly eyes sometimes. So I have to be careful about how I use it. This guy, the color is a little bit off for me, but this does give a lot of coverage without drying out my under eye. So I've been enjoying it. I don't know that I would necessarily pick it up again, but it's got a good texture to it. Overall, I think these are strong contenders if you're thinking about buying a luxury concealer. These are pretty good because they're just not like that chalky, blanked out look. Like, they help a lot, but they also look natural, if you know what I mean. Like, they're not super high coverage. You could get there, but it does a lot without having to put a lot on, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's that perfect balance of like brightening up the under eye without looking like it's too much. Bit of setting powder underneath here. This, I believe, is my most expensive powder, loose powder setting powder. This is the Junkay light loose powder. I think it's around $65. But I have some other ones that aren't too much less than this. They're all kind of in that price range of like the high 50s, low 60s. This powder I'm using, it's not my favorite. It's a little bit dry, but it does a good job of kind of mattifying things out. So I set that under eye there. Now getting into setting powders and blushes, bronzers, all of that powdery stuff. So I have a couple of blurring setting type of powders here that are pressed. This is the Junkay Perfect Blur. This is about $80. I think it's worth it because it's one of the smoothest baked setting powders out there. There's not a lot of shades, unfortunately. I think there's only 2. But I think this is worth it just because I've tried a few and I really like the texture of this. The Sicily Blur Expert is more money technically, so this is the most expensive. But this color is too dark for me and there's only one color. It is beautiful. It is very finely milled, similar to the Junkay, but the color for me is just too dark. And it's, I think, a little bit easy to put too much on. Like, it's got, I don't know, some moisture to it, like it's almost wet. It's like a moist powder almost. So you kind of don't get quite the mattifying effect. You get kind of a dewy powder look with it, if that makes sense. So for certain people, this is going to be nice. I know some people suggest putting this powder on before foundation, and that's the way it looks best. I didn't really have great luck with that technique, but I know some people really love this. Personally, I wouldn't buy this again. So I'm going to be using the Junkay Perfect Blur. This is also, I don't want to say like you can't overdo this powder either. Sometimes these really light powders, you think, oh, I can just put on tons of it and it won't be heavy. There are certain occasions where I have like a really dewy or tinted moisturizer on and I put this on top and it looks terrible. So you just want the lightest layer of this. Sometimes you might want to put a loose setting powder first and then this kind of a blurring powder on top. That's another technique you can use. But here we are, just a light layer of that. Really pretty, really good at blurring. All right, bronzer. Bronzer is one of those things that I feel like as long as you find the right color for you, you know, you like the amount of coverage it gives, and you know, depending on where you put it, some people just put it on their cheeks, some people put it all over under the neck to give like an overall kind of bronzed look from the sun. But some people use bronzer in different ways, kind of just a contour maybe, and some people like different bronzer shades depending on the time of year, how tan they are. Overall, I think bronzer is one of those things where it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive to work for you, but there is some colors and formulas that I enjoy more than others. These are the most expensive in my collection. Well, one of them I really love because I've hit pan on it. This is the Junkay Real Bronze in Goa. This is a pretty dark shade for me. I have to use a really light hand, but the Big Gelée is a stunning formula. I think it looks natural, but I definitely can go overboard and look a little bit too bronze, a little bit too fake. This is the Tom Ford Glow Bronzer. I'm not sure the difference in cost. They're probably about pretty similar. This is the Glow Bronzer in number 2 Terra. They have a larger size. This is the smaller one. This guy is a pretty tone, and it's not like a super matte. There's like a little bit of sheen, but not too much. So it also depends on the level of sheen or not sheen. You want a matte bronzer. Sometimes that looks a little bit dusty. Some people prefer a little bit more of a glow. There's a lot of nuance in every product, right? Bronzer is one of those where you have to pay attention to texture, what kind of color it is. I mean, it's almost in line with complexion, where if you don't get the right color, you can look orange. So I could see spending a little bit more or a little bit less. You just need to find the right color and finish that works for you. These are really great, but I have other bronzers in my collection. I have ones from Sicily, which is even more expensive, but it's probably the glowiest of all of these. But I have some from Victoria Beckham, Wayne Goss, also fairly pricey. Wayne Goss is probably the least expensive out of all of these, and there's several different shades to choose from. They come in a duo. Some people like duos rather than just relying on one shade. Again, it just depends on you, how much effort you want to put into your look. I think today I'm going to go with the Junkay, just use a really light hand. This is the Sonia G Sculpt one. And just do a light little layer here. There's some really great blushes out there at all price points. My most expensive ones, I think full retail. I get a lot of this stuff on sale when I can, especially Sicily. Sicily is probably the most expensive brand that I have. This I got on sale. I think this is normally $80. This is the Lafido blush from Sicily. This is the Golden Rose shade. I think this formula is okay. It's got a little bit of moisture to the finish. It's a pretty shade, but I think this is a play on like a more golden Orgasm blush from NARS. Like, it's kind of the same idea. That one is a bit drier, of different formula. This one I think is super shimmery. It's a fine blush. I would not get more shades, to be honest. I don't think it's that incredible of a formula, so really not worth it to me. But you live and learn, you know? You don't know until you try it. Another expensive blush duo from Tom Ford. This is a blush and this is a highlight. You can mix them. They're both have a lot of sheen, obviously. If you like a blush that's a lot flatter, more matte, this probably won't work for you. This is the Skin Illuminating Powder Duo in 7 Incandescent. Expensive palette here. I've had this for several years. I've only used it so many times. I think it's pretty. The highlighter's a little bit deep for my skin tone. I think I can make it work, but people will argue that this is too dark. The blush is pretty. It's kind of a red-ish tone, but it's one of those things where it's a bake delay formula, so some people really like that. They will pay whatever money to get those kinds of formulas. I have to say, even though I like it, I've had it for years, I don't think I would pick up this again, and I wouldn't pick up another shade. So Tom Ford has a $90 blushes now. There's like 2 colors come in it. They look pretty. I know people love them, but $90 for a blush duo is just too much for me. Way too much. This is a new highlighter a lot of people are interested in from Chanel. This is the $80 Rev de Camellia limited edition highlighter. I think the packaging is stunning, so I wanted to get it. The flower detail, it's amazing. You know, I like finish and color of this highlighter, but it's not like, it's pretty, but it's not something we have to have. I'm sure you have, I mean, it's a pink toned highlighter, champagne-y pink. It's not super pink. It's not super out in your face bright. It's refined, it's nice, but do we need it? Do we need an $80 highlighter that looks like this? No, because we probably can find something a quarter of the price to get that finish. But, you know, it's pretty makeup, pretty packaging. I totally get it. All right, eyebrows. This is my most expensive eyebrow product, Tom Ford Fiber Brow Gel. It's on Sephora right now, still in stock. I think there's one shade left. It's harder to get these days. I don't know why. This is around $55 for an eyebrow fiber brow gel. This is the shade Taupe. I think this lasts a long time for me, and every time I wear makeup, I have to fill in my brows because they are really sparse. And this is my favorite one and done product. It's not going to give you the most defined look. It does kind of produce like a big, bold boy brow if you want to go there. And it can be easy to go there because sometimes a lot of product does come out on the brush. But overall, I think it hits a lot of marks that I'm looking for in a brow product. Things stay in place. I get my brows to look filled in. I can do a little bit of defining, but not too precise. And it just gives me a nice quick fill in that I'm looking for. And because there's a brush attached, you know, it's a brush applicator, I can push things up all at the same time. So there you have it. This is our fast, kind of bold, thicker brow, if that is what you're into. If you want something a little bit more perfected and sculpted and carved out, you're gonna have to put in a lot more time and probably a lot more products, but that's my quick eyebrow product that I think lasts like at least 6 months. I think it's well worth the money. Some eyebrow products in a little tiny pencils, I just go through them so quickly, but something like this lasts a lot longer. All right, moving right along here to eyes. I think most of us would probably agree that eye products, the price overall doesn't really change much. I think, of course, some brands, some types of products have real performance issues. Some people prefer lots of pigment and just want an easily blendable eyeshadow. Some people want a variety of colors available to them. Other people aren't as picky, you know, they like basic matte shadows. Maybe they don't have creasing issues. Maybe they prefer a more sheer formula than a heavily pigmented one. So a lot of eye products, I think it depends on your preference, whether or not you like a product or not, no matter the price. I think some high-end makeup eyeshadows, oh, I don't know. It's not a lot of the time, but it seems like more often than not, high-end misses the mark on eyeshadow, powder eyeshadows in particular. I don't know why that is, to be honest. It kind of puzzles me sometimes. There's a few brands that just do eyeshadow little palettes like really poorly. Some of them it's hit or miss. Sometimes the formula is great, sometimes it's just terrible. So I think if I had to suggest a category that you spend more money on, I think eyeshadow eye products, not necessarily. You don't have to spend a lot of money on them. There are some products like eyeliners that the performance really does change the more money you spend. But you know, you can get some great like liquid eyeliners in the $20 range, some great gel and pencils in that price range as well. But there are some gel liners that are a bit more money that I think are even better. So let's talk about eyeliners first then. So I have the Victoria Beckham Satin Congeal Liner. I have like 5 of these. These are more in the $30 range. I think they're well worth it. They give you a lot of pigment really quickly. You do have to let them dry a little bit, but you can blend them out. I like the color she comes out with. So I think these are worth it. Now I have an even more expensive kohl liner pencil from Sisley. This is the Fido Kohl Perfect. This is a very dry, old school sharpened pencil formula, and it it kind of hurts. You have to like apply pressure to get the color to come out. Like it's not as easy as the gel liners that I'm used to, but this is a more dry pencil old school formula. So some people prefer this, but I just think it's such a basic formula that this is not worth the money. I don't really understand this product and why people rave about it. So 2 very expensive products, one worth it, one not so much. For eyeshadows, I have some expensive eyeshadow palettes that I definitely think are worth checking out. So Pat McGrath has her Mothership palettes. I have lots of videos. I have a ranking video on them. These are usually about $125 full price. Usually when they come out, you can get them 10% off. Also, she has sales where you can get like 25 or 30% off a palette, so they become more about $80. That's still a lot of money for 12 shadows, I agree, but these are pretty special formulas. And her mattes are wonderful, her special shades are wonderful, some of her shimmers are really good. So, and you get a very heavy luxury palette. This is just one of them. I believe there's 9 palettes now. But she does have smaller palettes. She does have quads. So you don't have to go get the big ones if you don't want to. But this is a high-end luxury palette, one of the more expensive ones in my collection that I do think are worth it. Just depends on the colors that you like, which one you want to get. I also have this Danessa Myricks palette. I think this was over $100, so one of my more expensive eyeshadow palettes. This isn't available anymore. This is limited edition. This is the Lightwork Volume 3 palette. It does have highlighters in here, not just eyeshadow products. This is a really fun, stunning palette, but it's actually kind of worth it if you look at other multi-chrome eyeshadows that are sold individually. You actually are getting a lot more for your money in this kind of a palette, because some of these might be at least $20 each per eyeshadow. So, you know, price per value, this isn't that bad, even though it seems like a lot. But where we really get into high-priced luxury eyeshadows is in individual eyeshadows. Some of the luxury stuff out there is pretty ridiculous, like one eyeshadow for over $50. This is the Sicily Lifido Ombre Sparkling Topaz. It's pretty, but I don't think it's worth over $50 for one shade, just point blank. Like, it's nice, but it doesn't do my laundry. Like, it's not that special. Junkay is another one. Individual shadows that are just crazy amounts of money. This is the luminescent eye shade in Crane. This is a smoky burgundy shade. It has some glitter in there. It's pretty. It has a lot of texture. It's special. And some of the money goes to charities, so I get the higher price point because some of it, the money's going somewhere else. But in terms of like specialness, performance, it's just not hitting the mark for me. So like these kinds of things, I wouldn't recommend the high-end single shadow stuff. Unless you're like, yeah, I'm going to use this eyeshadow every day. This is the only color like this I want in my collection. I love high-end. I love the little mirror. Sure, but most of us don't just use one eyeshadow at a time. Here are some other ones. This is a Tom Ford cream color for eyes. This is a cream eyeshadow. He has different shades that are very similar to the Charlotte Tilbury cream eyeshadows. This is the color Sphinx. It's really pretty. It's kind of got a duochrome effect to it. It's really light though. I would prefer getting the Charlotte Tilbury ones because they're quite a bit less money than the Tom Ford version, but they're very similar formula. So in terms, like, I don't think this is any better than the Charlotte Tilbury shimmery ones, not the matte, but the shimmery ones. So I mean, there's comparable formulas for the less money for the Tom Ford. This Victoria Beckham, the lid lusters, I have the chiffon shade here. She doesn't have like really sparkly eyeshadows in her little palettes, but she has these like individual sparkly shades. Like, these are nice, like they're clean formula, they're powder, so they're pretty easy to apply. I do get a little bit of fallout, They're a little bit of a chunky glitter for me, personally. I wish they were not as chunky. And I think they're just okay. The packaging is stunning. Like, this is a heavy duty little pot. But, like, to me, not really worth the money. So I have 2 shades of them. I don't know that I'm going to pick out another one because I don't think they're worth it. Like, I'm just gonna say that, unfortunately. All right, so I'm gonna use the Tom Ford Sphinx. Even though it's not my favorite, it's still an enjoyable creamy formula that I can apply with my fingers. But the Charlotte Tilbury I would suggest to get instead. But I just wanted something really pretty and sheer on the lid. And I don't know, I just kind of like the vibe of the Sphinx color. You might get some creasing with a cream eyeshadow, so I would just make sure you don't apply a super thick layer, kind of let it dry a little bit before blinking a lot. A primer usually helps, but you can also just press out that creasing with your finger later on. So speaking of eyeliners, I'm going to use the Victoria Beckham Satin Kajal eyeliner in bronze, one of my favorite shades. A little bit of definition along the lash line there. Mascara. Mascara is very personal, and it's something that expires quickly, that you're gonna probably go through quickly if you wear makeup every day. Most people wear mascara. This is the Junkay. What is this? Fossils mascara. It has some like lash conditioning ingredients. Supposedly makes your lashes grow. I haven't really seen that effect. I got this on sale, otherwise I wouldn't have purchased this. I think this is like a $70 mascara. The wand, to me, is pretty basic. I think a lot of what mascaras are about is the wand shape and if it's going to work for your lashes. And, you know, of course, the mascara formula. For me, I mean, this mascara is fine. It's not bad. It's comfortable. I don't notice a lot of flaking. But if you think you're going to get dual purpose with this in terms of like growing your lashes, I don't really know that people have seen that much of a result from it. But me personally, I don't think it's worth $70 for a mascara, especially it's going to expire in 6 months or so. Some people go through mascaras that quickly. I usually don't, but this this mascara wand in particular, I don't think is like that special. Like if my lashes were doubling in size, I would be like, okay, this mascara is worth it, but I don't really get those amazing results from it, so I can't really recommend. All right, I think we're on to the last category, which is lip. I have a lot of lipsticks in probably the $30-ish range. I don't like spending a whole lot more than that usually, but I do have a couple exceptions to show you. My most expensive lip stuff in makeup in general is Sicily. I have one of their lipsticks. The packaging is amazing. This is one of their Le Fido Rouge lipsticks. They have a lot of colors. I love the shade. I can't really find a lot of other brands that have this shade, but it's a classic satin creamy formula. It's not super long lasting or anything like that. It's not matte, but the bullet is exquisite and I love the shade of this. I wouldn't mind picking up another shade, but it's not like I'm running out to go get these. I do have their new Fido Rouge Shine lipstick, which I actually prefer more than this. I think it's just more an everyday wearable balm formula that I enjoy and I can feel like I can apply without a mirror. This is a little bit more high maintenance, but those are like super expensive. So again, like they're pretty. I just like, I don't know that they're worth it. Like even Chanel is less expensive for like the same type of product. So like I love them. I just really hate the price. Especially lip stuff, like it doesn't stay on your lips all day usually, let's just be honest. You have to keep reapplying and it's just in a small part of your face. Like, I don't know. Lip products is hard for me to justify. I think really what it is like, do you like the color? some people are really picky about the colors that they wear, so if a high-end brand has your color, you know, you're gonna buy it. Like, I know there's always those statistics, even when the economy is down, that people still buy a lipstick because it's one of the great things about lipstick. It's a quick way to apply makeup and freshen up your face. And like, if you don't have any makeup on, some people will just wear lipstick and that's it. So spending a little bit more money maybe to get the formula that you like and the shade that you like, some people may find that it's worth it. And you can use certain colors with a lot of different looks. So it's not like a bad idea to spend more money. It's just, I think there's so many great lip products out there, even at the drugstore. So I don't know. Luxury makeup, is it worth it? Luxury lipstick, is it worth it? There are some exceptions. Like, I think some formulas are super special. Like Lisa Eldridge, her stuff, it's expensive per lipstick, not as much as these, but her colors, her formula is something different and special. So I think her stuff's worth it. But Tom Ford is another expensive lipstick brand. This is the lip color Casablanca. I don't know quite the formula of this, but I know Casablanca is a popular shade. This is a pretty tone. Again, another satin formula. Probably looks pretty similar to this one, actually, but I do like these kinds of colors. I personally don't reach for this that often. It's a little bit deeper, richer color, a little bit more special occasion for me. I do like the formula of it. It's kind of a classic lipstick formula. I think Tom Ford has a bit more nuanced shades, so people do like Tom Ford lipsticks. So some of his shades you might not be able to easily find at lower price points, but with the proliferation and expansion of makeup brands out there, you probably could find something similar these days, to be honest. There's just so many options. Another formula that is not a typical lipstick, this is the Chanel liquid lipstick. This is the Le Rouge Duo Ultra Tenue Gloss. So you have the lipstick part here, which is pretty dry, and then the clear lipstick on the other, clear lip gloss on the other side. I think these are well worth it, but these, I believe, are probably in the high 30 price point, maybe 40s. Fairly expensive for what you get, but this is one of the best clear lip glosses I've ever tried. And the colors of these lipsticks are really nice, really pretty. They have nudes, they have pinks, they have reds. So if you like Chanel stuff, like you just like pulling out that luxury Chanel thing out of your bag, I suggest this formula for sure. All right, guys, that is like my full face of the most expensive makeup in my collection. What do you guys think of this look? I would bet that you'll say, well, that looks pretty much like all your other looks, for sure. But is this makeup worth it? Some of it is, some of it isn't. Unfortunately, you won't know until you try it. It's a lot of trial and error with makeup, but hopefully I saved you some coin by trying it myself, and maybe some of this stuff will work for you. Maybe some of it won't. But I always encourage you to stay within your budget when you're purchasing makeup. If you want to prioritize certain kinds of products, totally get that. There's so much available out there. Even if you don't like going to the drugstore, there are lower cost brands that have tons of options these days. Target has tons of stuff. So definitely check it out if you haven't been to the drugstore in a while. Also, luxury retailers are having lots of sales these days, especially right now during the springtime around the Sephora sale. I see a lot of beauty retailers having sales, so definitely check those out and don't pay full price if you don't have to. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this video, click the thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.